Hello, everybody. Scott Golden here with the World Class Championship Wrestling Review Series. We are into November of 1986, and a lot of action this week. A lot of weak matches, to be completely honest. Black Bart, former world champion, against Perry Jackson. He's actually announced as a former world champion. I think almost to get people to care that he was one. High cross body by Jackson early. Gets a near fall. By not really given a champion's welcome. Works over the arm for the first several minutes and gets a good bit of offense through working on the arm. The crowd cheering for Jackson more out of dislike for Bart than like for Jackson. Literally, Bart working the arm is several minutes. And Bart, I will say, I enjoy his Mid-Atlantic run. I enjoy a lot of his earlier stuff. Not so much a fan of him in World Class. I don't think he ever really fit here, but that's just a matter of personal preference, I think. I don't think it was that he didn't work hard. He just didn't fit. Anyway, Bart does hit the second rope leg drop, which looks brutal to take, gets the victory. Then we go to an interview with Mike Von Erich and Mike and Lance Von Erich. Mike talks about being turned on last week by a crazy and egomaniacal Brian Adias. He talks about wanting revenge. He doesn't really know what to make of that, and then he says he expected to have a fair and just match. Did not get that, but he wants revenge on Adias. He says he doesn't really want to involve his brothers in it. Wants to handle it himself, and then Bourne and the other members of Pringle's team is what Lance Von Erich talks about. He wants revenge on Bourne and anyone associated with Percy Pringle. He says he was hit in the head with a chain several weeks before, and Buzz Sawyer's mentioned as someone he wants revenge with, and as well, and that's where that is. So that's that promo. Bourne and Sawyer versus Lance Von Erich and Steve Casey. Up next, Casey returning. Lance Von Erich got a nice golden robe, a little bit shiny, literally and figuratively. Here, Casey returns. Don't know that he's here very long, but he's here for a little while. He was a major star about a year ago in the area, so maybe passing back through. I know Casey was from Texas. He squares off a bit with Matt Bourne, comes up on a winning end of an exchange between the two of them, which some people would find interesting, other people would find apropos, but does not immediately get the match going. Obviously, Buzz Sawyer, still a guy that a lot of guys don't want to be in the ring with. He's quite intense for all the wrong reasons. Anyway, Casey manages to continue his war with Matt Bourne. Buzz Sawyer tags back in, cuts off the ring on Lance Von Erich for a couple of minutes, but misses a couple of elbow drops and the like. Von Erich slows the match down. We actually do see a tag back to Casey and Bourne. Bourne hits a Samoan drop that looks pretty brutal, and Bourne, as a member of the tag team champions, is proving why he's part of that championship tandem, and really goes to town on Casey. Buzz Sawyer comes back into the ring, tries to get an advantage using a top rope splash, misses, and we see a tag off to Lance Von Erich. Lance comes in all fired up and ready to go at Buzz Sawyer, and they do some battle for a little bit of brawling, more so. Lance Von Erich has certainly taken into the Von Erich name. Not quite sure when Kerry Von Erich returns. He's been out since about August or so, so I would assume his return early in 87 is what I'm thinking, but I don't know that for sure. Anyway, the Dingo Warrior makes his way out after the champions get their victory, somewhat underhandedly, Dingo Warrior tries to clear the ring of anyone associated with Pringle. Pringle gets hit with a couple of shots brought into the ring by Lance Von Erich. Before that happens, though, Warrior does not get the level of revenge he wants, but that doesn't mean that he doesn't attempt to grab the chain that's used by Matt Bourne, because he does. Then we move to Mike Reed and Steve Simpson. Mike Reed, obviously a guy who has been an enhancement guy for several, I'd even say a couple of years now. Simpson, former television champion, still trying to make him shine quite well. But he's a guy they can turn to fill time in a match. At this point, he's been around long enough that the crowd responds to him enough. And that's another thing, too, when bookers today are putting together, especially indie shows, national program a little bit different, but indie shows, have a guy that you can put in the middle of the card, matches, let's say 4 through 6, that is just there because the crowd knows who he is and you built him properly, and you just want to get some babyface reaction from your crowd. Know how to pace your matches. Reed manages to get some side headlock work. Simpson fights from underneath. Simpson takes his own approach to the side headlock. He ends up coming up with strikes. I don't necessarily agree with this match being as long as it is. It goes several minutes, which for a former champion to have an issue with an enhancement talent doesn't make sense to me. Inverted monkey flip by Simpson, and that goes his way, but that's just kind of there. Simpson obviously does get the victory. He gets that victory off of, I believe, it's a crossbody that he gets the victory off of, and it's interesting to me that sometimes what I find in world class is that while many matches needed to be competitive, and they talked today about too many competitive matches on TV. I still think, even in the 80s, as much as I love that time period, there was a lot of overuse of matches that should not have been as long as they are. And I'm sure when I get to the NWA from the 80s, the TBS show, I'll see guys like George South going longer than they should too. It's been an epidemic in wrestling, maybe since the beginning of the TV era, but certainly since the 80s. High crossbody from the top is the win for Simpson. And then we go to Spike Johnson against Bruiser Brody. That is what you'd expect it to be. Brody gets a relatively quick victory here. They managed to fit another 2 full matches into the final 15 minutes of this program. Brody's match and the main event tag match and an Ultimate Warrior interview, Dingo Warrior interview, all within 15 minutes. So that's kind of interesting. Brody standing with this Spike guy, which it's Bruiser Brody. It's a guy who's been all over the world. Spike Johnson should not be a challenge to him. Brody does send Johnson to the outside of the ring. Coming off the heels of the major match not that many weeks ago with a guy like Abdullah the Butcher. Brody should not have had the challenge he has here. Brody does own the ring very well, manages to stalk around on the inside. He's not intimidated by the guy he's in the ring with, but at the same time, I don't agree with him having the challenges that he has with him. Shouldn't have taken him more than 30 seconds to get a victory. Brody, manages the Irish whip, gets the big boot, and gets the victory. But needless to say, the main event is the Crusher Yurkoff and Zulu versus the Youngbloods. Marking Chris Youngblood. Obviously, and it's really interesting. There is a attempted sidekick by Yurkoff early. Looks pretty amazing. Zulu gets his foot caught by one of the Youngbloods and gets turned around. Obviously, the protection of the new television champion in Zerkov is there. He manages to come into the ring and I believe beat down on what would be Chris. He, holds him at bay for several minutes and kind of it doesn't make sense to me. Again, Zerkov, a guy who's 390 pounds, and he's having trouble where he's going at a guy for 4 or 5 minutes and actually takes some chops where he looks like the only thing holding him up is the ropes. The double team by the young bloods, and Zerkov rolls through and kind of manages to come up with a double clothesline. I mean, he can do athletic stuff, but you're also seeing him get nearly beaten by a tag team less than 3 months, 4 months after his debut, if that. I don't agree with booking a guy that size that way. Anyway, some chops by the young bloods, and that goes in a direction that's unexpected. We then notice Zerkov manages to have his way with the end of the match here, with about maybe a minute and a half to go in the broadcast. He manages to back off and does the up and over, and goes to the top rope and manages to hit a big splash. 1, 2, 3 gets the victory. But, I mean, he's doing too much too soon, at least in my view. We're going to go to the middle of November right after this.